Hi, good day, everyone. My name's Alex. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, specifically focused on the Ubiquiti AI360. I know it's an incredibly busy time of year for everyone, so I really appreciate your time and joining us today. So just to start off with, I'm Leader's National Trainer, and I'll be talking to you around this topic today. I'm a massive Ubiquiti fanboy. I keep saying that in every webinar we do, and it's true. Use Ubiquiti at home extensively as well. And specifically the Ubiquiti AI360, it's an awesome little device, and we're going to be looking at all the different features it has today as well. So always excited to be talking about Ubiquiti. Today's a quick little 30-minute session. Any questions are most welcome. We are going to have a Q&A session afterwards as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them through. Along with me today is Chris Sutherland, who is the product manager for Ubiquiti with Leader as well. So he's going to be assisting us with some of the questions in the Q&A afterwards. And if there's anything that comes through during the course of this training, then you guys are welcome to post them through. He'll attempt to answer them as we go. Alternatively, we'll answer them at the end. Okay, so with that said, we can dive straight into it and have a look at the AI360. So before we talk about the AI360, I just want to quickly make a mention of the protect side of Ubiquiti. So I'll be one of the first people that normally admits that when Ubiquiti initially released their video surveillance products all those years ago, I was quite skeptical of the way that they had structured it. But I'm 100% happy to say that I was completely wrong about that. Their surveillance product range today is very mature. It is extremely easy to use and a super simple way to manage and view your cameras. I know one of the biggest pain points is typically on exporting video footage. You can raise your hand if you've ever seen a YouTube video of someone attempting to export the video footage by recording the screen. So Ubiquiti removes this need, and it's much easier to actually work through your surveillance footage, view your video footage live, and to interact with your surveillance system. So navigating footage has also traditionally been quite painful in traditional CCTV environments. Ubiquiti make this super fast and easy, and specifically this is through the protect side of Ubiquiti. Ubiquiti have their different control centers. The one that we're going to be looking at today is the protect side of it. So it's all of their surveillance product under that colloquial term. So the one other benefit that I'll just quickly mention on the protect side of things as well is because it's so easy to use, you can have your operators trained very quickly. So you don't have the need to have an extremely technical IT person. They can pretty much manage this with anyone with minimal experience. I think we've got a question come through already. So someone's struggling with the audio there. All good. So with that said, we can take a look at the resource calculators. So one of the things that I get questions around quite frequently, and it's an often overlooked part of designing a security solution, is how do I gauge the system or the platform that I'm going to use to install my cameras on? So what I mean with that is, in a traditional CCTV system, you would use a NVR, and that NVR would typically on the box say that it can do 16 cameras or 8 cameras or something like that. With Ubiquiti, it's a bit different. They structure things a little bit different. So instead of one device that's purely dedicated for NVR purposes, you have more and more devices that are capable of functioning as a router, as a firewall, as a security gateway, and a whole bunch more from a single device. So when you're using something like that, it can be a little bit more difficult to estimate the number of cameras that you can get from it. The resource calculator, which is available from ui.com, and specifically the console section, can easily show us exactly how many cameras we can put onto something like a UDM SE, so the Unified Dream Machines, for example. So this allows you to take the number of access points that you have, as well as the number of cameras, and with a little slider, you can just move them around, and you can see based on that what the CPU load and memory usage is going to be. Ubiquiti do still do the traditional NVRs as well, and we're going to see more about that in a second. So unlike other brands, Ubiquiti doesn't have a million different product types where you have 50 different bullet cameras, and each one of them has a slightly higher or lower megapixel count, and one has WDR and the other doesn't, etc. Ubiquiti tend to stick to the core features that people need. And in other brands, you typically have hundreds of different styles, whereas Ubiquiti try to slim this down into one or two key models only. So the benefit to that is that you don't have to worry about the different specifications. Pretty much the bullet camera is the bullet camera, and there's a fewer variants of these solutions available. So resolutions do vary depending on the types of devices that you're going for, everywhere from 1080p all the way up to 4K Ultra HD, and of course both indoor and outdoor options as well. They even have a PTZ version available today. If you joined us at the Leader Expo, you would have seen it. It's quite a monster, but insane what you can do with the equipment that they have on offer. Ubiquiti also have a fair number of surveillance products that are currently in early access. I always encourage everyone to have a look at the Ubiquiti early access stores, just as a roadmap. So you can't actually purchase anything through that store in Australia, but as a overview of what's coming from Ubiquiti, I highly recommend it. They have a few cameras coming up there as well, and the new G5 variants should be on there soon, or if it's not on there already. So the one we're going to be focusing on is the AI360. I'm not going to bore you guys with the specs there, so it's typically available on the data sheet. What we're going to do today is we're going to look more at the technical side of it and actually going to do a quick setup of it as well. Before we do that, we just need to have a quick look at the NVRs like I alluded to earlier. So through these devices, we have a couple of advantages. The first of which is more processing power than you would have, for example, on a UDM or something like that. This is a dedicated piece of hardware, and it's meant to be used for recording and viewing your surveillance cameras, different camera types. Uh, so we can have many more cameras available on these NVRs because they have much more processing power available on them to actually manage it. And also important, the fact that we can have more hard drive bays. So obviously for long-term surveillance footage retention, it's incredibly important to have more hard drive bays available. And there are two main variants, so the Recorder Pro as well as the normal NVR, depending on what your requirements are in terms of camera counts and storage retention as well. So as the name implies, the AI360, the main purpose of this device is to provide a 360-degree field of view. So instead of just talking about the specs, we need to also look about the different use cases and why we need that 360-degree field of view. In most installs, the primary problem you're typically trying to solve is to have at least basic video coverage of a area, and typically that area is pretty large. With traditional dome or bullet cameras, it can be quite hard to effectively cover large areas, meaning you have to put down multiple cameras in order to cover a space. In places like offices or restaurants or hotels or something like that, it can be quite hard to put down the required number of cameras, as it ends up looking like Fort Knox and becomes a bit of an eyesore, not to mention the expense of that as well. And that's exactly why the AI 360 was invented, and why 360-degree cameras are so popular. They effectively replace multiple cameras with a single low-profile device that's unobtrusive and it doesn't look like an eyesore. The one big driving point behind this as well, like I said before, is cost saving. That's probably its biggest draw card. With these devices, you can cover as many as 4, 5, or 6 traditional cameras from one single device. So the benefit there is that you have one camera in the center of a room and it can do the same thing as multiple cameras that you would have had to deploy. Obviously, if you want to still have incredibly detailed footage about a specific, let's say, a desk or something like that, then you can still continue to deploy those solutions. You can deploy a traditional bullets or dome camera. But the idea behind the AI360 is to give you excellent 360-degree field of view and a wide area of coverage. And as the name implies, there's also a AI side to it, so artificial intelligence. And Ubiquiti essentially are talking about the special software that they run on the camera to enable them to identify cameras, sorry, not cameras, cars and people. And it's highly accurate as well. So through that, we can even take it a step further and we can say that if, for example, a person enters a scene, it should record video footage, whereas a car that generates motion enters the scene shouldn't generate a video recording event. So it's a good way to eliminate false positives and get the camera to only get trigger recording if people are moving through the scene, or vice versa. You can do it with cars only as well, depending on your use case. Um, so with this, they also have heat mapping functionality. This specifically revolves around retail. It was initially implemented or designed for retail spaces, where you can actually see how people are moving through a space and which spaces are most frequently visited. So if, for example, you have an overview of a small retail shop and you want to see which aisles get the most traction, that's exactly what this can do as well. So perfect for tracking how customers move through your environment. So as we know, um, the AI360 or the 360-degree lenses tend to have this round shape, and that's the 360-degree view. And because it's such a wide angle lens, we have a very clear view of the entire space, but it can be quite hard to decipher it if you're not zoomed into that image. And Ubiquiti actually has de-warping capabilities built straight into the camera as well. And through this, we can digitally zoom into this image and de-warp that image so it looks like a traditional camera. The best part is that you can do this both in the live view and after the fact. So the nice thing here is it's always recording the full camera. So let's say you were focused on the desk in the scene there, but something happened on the chair or next to the TV or something like that. Um, then essentially that entire scene was still recorded. You can just retroactively go back into the video footage and go see what has happened in that space, even though you weren't looking at it. It kind of feels like a little bit of CSI where we can enhance the image, but it's really, really good in terms of what you can get, and the detail is extremely good as well. Obviously, for our presentation purposes here, the video is a little bit lower resolution, but the resolution in real life is amazing, and the amount of detail you can pick up from that is insane as well. So this is a massive benefit over traditional PTZ systems, where if a PTZ was looking in a fixed direction, then obviously you would lose whatever is along the side or behind it. With this, the ePTZ capabilities allow us to do whatever we want after the fact as well. Some of the other advantages to the AI 360 is that it can be used both indoors and outdoors. So we've seen tons of these devices get deployed into spaces like schools or offices or restaurants, and in outdoor spaces like overviews of mining operations or where they're looking at industrial machinery, a whole bunch more of different applications. Really, the sky's the limit there, depending on what you want to use it for. They're also ruggedized, meaning they can protect themselves against vandalism. So it's an extremely strong design, and even the natural shape of it makes it more difficult to tamper with. It's hard to hit it with a rock. So it's a very good design, and it's extremely strong and holds up to your environmental factors as well. So with that, let's quickly take a look at the setup side of it, how these devices function through the Protect app. So this is a little test bench that we have running. This is going to be full disclosure, not live. I recorded this video footage yesterday just to simplify this, but you guys will see me moving the cursor along and talking through the various install setups. So this is the Protect app. It's running in our office. So there's a little UDM that I've got it connected up to. Um, this is one of the scenes that I recorded to, so it's looking through a window. So the resolution isn't as high, but just as a quick overview of what it can do, we're going to look at it in more detail in a second. But essentially, this is the main landing page that you typically see in Protect, which shows you your storage, etc. So my setup here is I have a AI360 setup. It's on my desk. right next to me, as you can see, and I'll wave there, as you can see from the video. So this gives me a nice, easy overview of the entire environment. I don't have it facing top down. It's just for ease of demonstration purposes. I can also make this video footage full screen if I want to. And essentially through this, we have a ton of options. So we can see the basic information about the camera, and we can go through its various recording modes as well. So in the recording mode, we can say whether it should pick up detections, and if we want to use schedules. So if you only want to record during business hours, for example, we can do that. And then where I've just ticked on smart detection is essentially where we select whether we want to do person tracking or vehicle tracking or both. We can also set triggers to say we want to capture a couple of seconds before or after an event has happened, in order to get a bit more information before or after the detection has occurred. Of course, similar to most of the Ubiquiti products, we can adjust the frame rate and image quality as well. So if your customer has stringent storage requirements or doesn't have enough storage space, it's an excellent way to manage that and make it better. We can, of course, set privacy zones as well. So if there's a specific area where we do not want to record it, then we can do that. And Ubiquiti have made this nice and flexible as well. So in the example here, it's not just a square box. I can actually make this kind of like a 3D shape, and I can move the points around in order to only cover the areas that I want to look at. So there we go. I've done my little shape there. And as soon as that's done, I can save it. And I can also set the sensitivity here if I want to. So with those settings applied, we can go to the settings page. I'm going to leave that here. In the settings page, we obviously can rename the camera to whatever we want to. We can add it to a device group as well if we want to manage devices in bulk. And through this, I can also adjust the image quality. Ignore the flashing lights there. That's the refresh rate of the neon lights that we have in the building. But essentially through this, I can change the brightness of the camera. I can change the hue, the contrast, the saturation, the sharpness. I can enable denoise capabilities, and I can set the exposure mode as well. So I can change between 50 and 60 hertz, depending on your environment and your power line frequencies, etc. I can also change the orientation around if I want to, so it automatically picks up what the orientation is of this as soon as I turn it on. And it's really clever in how it does that as well. Of course, you can do night vision through this as well. It actually has built-in IR lamps that can switch on based on movement or can be left on depending on what you're trying to achieve. And through this, we also have HDR capabilities as well. So I can also, like I said before, I can dewarp. So if I've clicked on the dewarp there, you'll see I can pan and tilt this around. So I'm going to start moving it quickly. And there we go. So I'm panning around the room. You can see my desk, and it's obviously Christmas, so we've got all the Christmas decorations up. And you can see how easily I can move into this. And again, this is either can be live or can be done afterwards, completely depending on what you want to do. And I can very easily take a snapshot as well. So through that, I've just taken a very quick snapshot. It's saved straight to my desktop, nice and easy. And with that, I'm going to close the player. So that's to adjust our image quality. We can also choose to disable our microphone completely if we want to. So a lot of places aren't okay with recording audio. And as a result of that, you can actually switch that off on a permanent basis as well. You can choose to switch on or off the little indicator light, depending on what you want from that. And of course, you can output a real-time RTSP stream from this as well. So I'm just going to cancel these changes, and I'm going to quickly go to the live view. In the live view, again, similar to before, I can expand the scene. I can get a bit more info from here. I can go full screen if I want to. So this is the view that an operator would take a look at typically. It's cutting off the tops just because of the aspect ratio, but essentially it's still always a 360-degree view. I can also choose to lower the resolution in live view mode as well. So that's cool because it means the video footage is still stored at the selected resolution, but your view is at a lower resolution if you have, for example, multiple cameras that you are trying to view at the same time. So we also, through the timeline and the detections view, we can very easily jump between scenes, and that's an incredibly important part. So through here, I've just paused the scene, and as you can see, it's going through a admittedly dirty window, so it's not the best picture. But as you can see, I can pan and tilt around this picture, and I can get a better view of what's happening in the environment retroactively, and the scene's frozen as is. So very cool to have this functionality and zoom capabilities, etc., in the device retroactively. With that, I'm going to quickly close this view. A lot of the rest of the setup and features are very similar to what you would have seen through the rest of the Protect devices, so the various IP cameras that Ubiquiti have. So if you've ever used one of their systems, it will look very familiar to you, regardless of what the camera type is. So in our environment here, I've only got the AI360 and a trainer UVC set up, although the UVC has been disconnected. Here I can get a very quick overview of the detections, and this is where I can get some insights. So motion detection here shows me the heat map that I was talking about earlier. It's picking up the flickering lights, so that's why we're seeing that in red. But essentially it would heat map the environment to show me where the most amount of movement is. And then we can either pick up events based on being a person or being a vehicle, for example. Of course, similar to any other Protect device, you can set up multiple users, and you do still have full setup capabilities as well. And you can set up event-based recording, the time schedules, how long it should record for, etc., etc. So tons of capabilities around this device. But again, the big points here is that you can replace multiple devices with one single device. And through this, we can de-warp that image and zoom into a specific area. So that's all fine and well, but I hear you asking already, how do I take this into account with my customer's environment? And the tool to use here is Design Center. So Design Center was created by Ubiquiti for people to import a floor plan, and it's primarily designed for your access points, but people often forget or overlook the fact that it can actually do surveillance products as well. So you can actually import your cameras onto this and do your floor plan through this. I always use this as a good selling tool. So if I'm going to a customer, for example, I would say that I'll draw up your floor plan or use an existing floor plan. And I would use this as a tool to show them what I'm planning to do. And it differentiates me from the competitors as well, because I can very easily then go to them with a tangible piece of information that they can use. Again, primarily used for access point side of things to see coverage, but it can be used for your camera side of things as well. With that, we are pretty much done with the AI360. To me personally, I find that the biggest benefit from that is the capability to replace multiple cameras, especially for customers that are tight on their budget. We don't have money to put down 5 different cameras just to get a very specific view. The AI360 is an awesome solution for that. A lot of the times people don't actually need to have in-depth views of a specific scene. They just want an overview, and that's really where the AI360 shines. You can also wall mount this as well if you want to, so you can mount it to give you a 360-degree view that way, depending on what your requirements are. So if you've enjoyed this topic, I would highly encourage you guys to check out the rest of the videos we have available on Leader Academy as well. And Leader Academy is essentially Leader's training site. Through this, we have tons more webinars available coming up next year and this year, as well as all the previously recorded videos, including this one, which will be uploaded there a little bit later today. And through that, we can also get a complete training calendar as well. So this is the calendar showing us what's happening in Adelaide and Sydney as of next year. If you haven't attended Ubiquiti training yet, I highly encourage it. It's very, very good. Primarily focused on indoor and outdoor wireless, but we do cover just a basic product overview of the surveillance products as well, if that's your main interest. So this is the webinars. As you can see, there's tons and tons of them available, and I highly encourage you guys to sign up for them to attend. And the link there is leaderacademy.com.au. So again, it's a 30-minute session, so we're pretty much out of time already, so very quick. We're going to do a quick Q&A, and we can look at your questions and give you guys some quick answers. Okay, I think Ben's corrected me on a typo there. Thank you, thank you, Ben. I didn't spot that one. Let me quickly see if we've got any other questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them through now. Alternatively, if you've stuck around this long, we also do have a prize draw. So I'm going to quickly pull the names, and essentially we have a AI360 available to give away as well. If you're watching this retroactively and you've already left the webinar, it's fine. You'll still be eligible for the prize, but only people that have attended the webinar will be eligible for the prize. I don't see any questions come through, but as always, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either myself or your leader account manager. We'd be happy to assist. And with that said, I think, do you have an ETA for more stock to come in? Tons of questions coming through all at once. Perfect. So ETA on more stock. Mr. Chris, I think you can help me out here, but I believe we have tons
happily.
of them.
We've got a good couple of them on hand, but we actually do have more landing next week. So loads of these available, which is great. Unfortunately, the G4 domes, the single ones, we're seeing some big constraints in those. So these are actually the perfect replacement. So instead of buying 3 or 4 regular G4 domes or even the bullets, you can replace 3 or 4 of them with just one AI360, as Alex mentioned a bit earlier, which is really great. So thankfully, no stock constraints on these. They seem to be coming through thick and fast, which is good to see.
Okay, and then we have a question around pricing. So for pricing, because this webinar is recorded and shown afterwards, we unfortunately don't give away pricing here, but we will reach out to you directly after that with an answer to that as well. And then we have a question on the RTSP stream from the devices, from the cameras. So yes, you can output a RTSP stream from the cameras as well. I will quickly make a note here that the cameras do not support OnViv, and as a result of that, it's not really meant for integrating into like a traditional Hikvision or something like that. It's more meant to work with Ubiquiti and Ubiquiti NVRs, etc. And then there's a question here that from Andrew again that says, more protect storage question. Is there an option to have a second storage option in case the main NVR or UDM is stolen or damaged by intruders? Chris, you can maybe help me out here.
No, not at the moment. So Ubiquiti are looking at doing like an NVR-based device, not just a basically remote storage solution. It's something that's in their early access scenario, not NVR, sorry, NAS, that's the word I'm looking for. So they're looking at actually developing a separate NAS box that can be used for network storage, and that's going to integrate with the NVRs to do offloading of the video surveillance. But it's not available just yet, but it is definitely coming in 2023.
Awesome. And then there's a question here, is there a way to get the events from the cameras into another system via an API? I don't believe so. Chris, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe
that's correct. Yeah, Ubiquiti prefer to operate as a closed infrastructure. As you mentioned, they don't even support the OnViv standard, which is the sort of open handshakes between vendors. They like to lock things down from a security perspective and a couple of other reasons. So no, unfortunately, that isn't available.
Okay, and then the last question here from Clinton, what is the resolution of the AI360? So that is 5 megapixels, and it's essentially outputting at 1920 by 1920 resolution. So fairly high resolution. Again, you can get a nice and detailed scene from the device.